Echoes in the subway. It was close to midnight in New York City, the kind of hour when the streets above were quieter, but underground the subway still pulsed like the veins of a restless beast. The fluorescent lights in the station buzzed overhead. The tiled walls were stained with decades of grime. A warm gust of air swept through as a train screeched to a halt, its brakes whining like a wounded animal. The doors slid open with a metallic sigh. Only a handful of people stepped inside. At the far corner, Angela, a young nurse, sank into her seat. Her scrubs were wrinkled, and her sneakers were smudged from a 14-hour shift. She rubbed her temples and stared at her phone. An old photo of her younger brother, smiling in his baseball cap. He'd been killed 3 years earlier in a robbery outside a corner store. Every time she rode the subway late at night, the memory returned. The helplessness, the anger, the way tragedy could hit like a lightning strike. Across from her sat Marcus, a man in his 40s. His face was rough, his eyes hollow, his hands restless. He wore a faded jacket and clutched a worn backpack tightly to his chest. Inside were bundles of stolen cash, a job gone wrong, partner who had vanished, and a plan that was unraveling. He had told himself tonight was his chance to escape, to disappear into another state, start fresh. But guilt gnawed at him, louder than the train's rumble. Near the doors stood Ethan, a man in a gray suit, clean-shaven, neatly dressed, but his shoulders sagged. His phone screen glowed with an unread email. "We regret to inform you." He'd lost his job that evening after blowing the whistle on his corrupt boss. His career was in ashes, his marriage already strained. He was headed home, but part of him wondered what for. His life, once orderly, now felt like a tunnel with no light at the end. Finally, on one of the sideways benches, sat Mrs. Ramirez, a woman in her late 60s with a cane and a bag of groceries in her lap. Her hair was streaked with silver, her face worn with years, but her eyes were gentle. She had just left the church kitchen where she volunteered every Friday night, serving hot meals to people who had less than her. The subway was her routine, even at this hour. The train jolted forward, the cars rattling. The sound filled the silence between them. Angela exhaled slowly. Ethan scrolled on his phone. Marcus checked the station signs, counting down. Mrs. Ramirez hummed quietly under her breath, a tune only she seemed to know. And then chaos. The connecting door at the end of the car banged open. A masked man burst through, a pistol gleaming in his hand. His voice tore through the car like a blade. "Wallets. Phones. Don't make me use it." The world froze. Angela's heart slammed in her chest. The photo of her brother flashed across her mind like lightning. Not again. Not another gun. Ethan's hands trembled as he pulled his wallet from his pocket. His mind screamed, "Not like this. Not after everything already lost." Marcus stiffened. His stomach dropped. He knew that voice. He knew that walk. This was no stranger. This was Derek, the partner who had vanished hours earlier with half the stolen cash. The man who had betrayed him. Mrs. Ramirez simply looked at the robber, her cane tapping lightly on the floor. "You don't have to do this, Mijo," she said softly, her voice steady in a way that cut through the panic. "Shut up, old woman," the gunman barked, waving the weapon. But there was a flicker in his eyes, just for a second, a crack in the mask. He moved closer, snatching phones, wallets. He pointed the gun at Angela. "You, bag." Her throat tightened. Her brother's last moments replayed like a cruel film reel. She couldn't move. Marcus's breath came heavy. He couldn't stay seated. His whole life had been about running, from cops, from guilt, from responsibility. But watching Angela freeze, he suddenly felt something tear inside. "Enough!" he shouted, standing. His voice was raw, shaking. The gun swung toward him. Derek's eyes narrowed. "Marcus? You!" The recognition hit both men at once. Fate had pulled them into the same car. The gunshot came fast. The crack of it shook the car. Marcus staggered back, clutching his shoulder. Blood spread across his jacket. Angela's instincts took over. Nurse first, fear second. She dropped beside him, pressing her hands to the wound. "Stay with me." Look at me, stay awake. The robber cursed, backing toward the door. But Ethan, silent until now, suddenly acted. He hurled his briefcase with all his strength. It slammed into Derek's arm. The gun clattered to the floor. In an instant, Mrs. Ramirez swung her cane down, pinning the weapon against the metal floor. Her groceries spilled, apples rolling across the car, but her focus never wavered. Angela's hand shook as she grabbed the gun, sliding it out of reach. Her heart raced. She had never held one before. Derek froze, staring at Marcus bleeding on the floor. For a split second, fear, not rage, crossed his face. Then he bolted through the open doors as the train screeched into the next station. Silence fell, heavy and broken only by Marcus's groans. Pressure. He needs pressure, Angela shouted. Ethan knelt, tearing off his tie, pressing it firmly against the wound. His hands shook, but his voice steadied. I got you. Stay with us. Marcus coughed, his face pale. Why'd I do that? Angela leaned close, her voice soft but fierce. Because you're not who you think you are. You saved us. The train stopped. Police officers flooded the car, guns raised. They took statements, secured the scene. Marcus was carried out on a stretcher, his backpack slipping open. That's when bundles of cash spilled across the floor. The officers froze. Angela froze. Ethan froze. Even Mrs. Ramirez, calm as ever, let out a long sigh. Marcus's eyes fluttered. His lips moved. I was going to run. Start over. His voice cracked. Guess fate had other plans. The cops bagged the cash, hauled him away. Weeks later, in a Manhattan courtroom, the story resurfaced. Angela testified as a nurse, her voice shaking as she described how Marcus had saved their lives. She spoke of second chances, of redemption. Her brother's death had haunted her for years, but this felt like a piece of healing. Ethan sat nearby, no longer in his suit. He had joined a nonprofit, inspired by that night to fight for people trapped by bad choices and broken systems. That one act of courage had pulled him back from despair. Mrs. Ramirez was in the front row, her cane by her side, her eyes proud, as if she had known all along how it would unfold. Marcus stood before the judge, bandages still visible beneath his shirt. He looked smaller somehow, but freer. The judge's words rang out. Against all odds, a crime turned into an act of courage. This court believes in redemption. Marcus, you will serve time, but you will also be given a chance at rehabilitation. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. He turned, meeting Angela's gaze, then Ethan's, then Mrs. Ramirez's. He mouthed, "Thank you." And for the first time in years, he believed it wasn't the end of his story. Because on that midnight train, in the bowels of the city, strangers had collided in violence, fear, and chance. Yet out of it had come something else, humanity. And sometimes, that's the greatest twist of all.